Morning. Deacon Ron here. Welcome to Elijah's Fire. Many of my students and friends have asked me what I think about Jordan Peterson because they know I'm a fan of his. So I thought I would just read you something I wrote about him a while ago. I think it's fine as a Catholic to listen to Jordan Peterson as long as you clearly understand what he offers Christians and what he does not offer them. I think he's being used by God to bring a lot of good into the world. St. Thomas Aquinas said, if anything is true, it is from the Holy Spirit. And I think Jordan Peterson speaks a lot of truth. St. Thomas Aquinas himself used the philosophy of non-Christians like Plato and Aristotle to help him understand and explain the truths of Christianity. And I think you can do something similar with the psychology of Jordan Peterson. So what does he have to offer to Christians? Firstly, he has a great respect for the Judeo-Christian tradition, and as a prominent intellectual, is a staunch defender of this tradition against the attacks of new atheists like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, who claim that religion poisons everything and the Bible is nothing but a barbaric collection of fairy tales. His public lectures on the book of Genesis have been watched by millions all over the world. He has people listening to lectures on God, Adam and Eve, Abraham, Cain and Abel, and Sodom and Gomorrah, who would normally never come anywhere near a church or ever think about even opening a Bible. What he does is that he explains the stories of the Bible in a way that teach profound psychological truths, relevant and applicable for today. I think his interpretations are valid, although they are limited to a purely psychological understanding and leave out the metaphysical and spiritual dimensions to the stories. Although there is an overlap between the psychological and spiritual, he does not dwell on this overlap because it is not his field of expertise. An example of his approach to the Bible can be found in one of his basic messages that the world is a place of suffering and chaos, and that the best way to confront that chaos is to carry the cross of your responsibilities and struggle up the hill of life towards the goal of being the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. He says that we must confront the chaos of life with courage by getting our lives in order, speaking the truth and making the right sacrifices. And when we do so, we are acting in the image and likeness of God. And if you do all this, you will bring a lot of good into the world for both yourself and for those around you. And this is what makes life bearable, worthwhile, and meaningful. He uses biblical stories to call people to fulfill their potential by living lives of moral virtue. So you can see why his message resonates with and inspires so many Christians. He recognizes that the Judeo-Christian heritage is one of the major pillars of Western civilization. This heritage has helped form the West into one of the most successful civilizations the world has ever known, because its foundation stone is the fundamental biblical doctrine that each individual, despite their race, gender, or class, is sacred because they have been created by God in God's image and likeness. The ideas of freedom, liberty, equality, truth, and justice for all are expressions of this doctrine and did not just appear miraculously in the Enlightenment, as some atheists like to claim. The influence of this doctrine can be seen in documents as diverse as the Magna Carta, the American Declaration of Independence, and the United Nations Declarations on Human Rights. Therefore, Dr. Peterson says we should be more appreciative and grateful of what Western civilization and the Judeo-Christian worldview in which it is nested has given us. We should not simply take for granted that we have clean water, electricity, and food on demand, and that we have amazing institutions of higher education, healthcare, and social welfare, and that we live in democratic societies ruled by law and order, which respect freedom of speech, human rights, and the rights of minorities. In fact, you can trace the progress of Western societies in terms of an ever-increasing recognition of the rights of minorities. and this recognition can be traced back to the biblical injunction to care for the widow, orphan and stranger, and Christ's injunction to recognize and serve the divine in the poor, suffering and outcast of society. Christianity inspired the establishment of the first schools and universities, hospitals, orphanages, welfare organizations and leper colonies wherever it set foot. Christianity has inspired the most stunningly beautiful art, music, literature and architecture. It is Christianity that shaped our laws and democratic systems of government. As Jordan Peterson says, the Judeo-Christian tradition is the basis of Western civilization, and you cannot remove the first 9 stories of a building and expect the 10th story to simply stay afloat. The Judeo-Christian tradition is the salt of Western civilization, and you don't know it's there until you try somewhere that hasn't got it. Try living, for example, as a minority or a political dissident in China, Iran or Saudi Arabia. He's not saying the West is perfect and that it has never committed atrocities, done anything evil, and that it has no room for improvement. What society can ever make that claim? But he rejects the narrative of the far left found in the media and many universities that Christianity and the West are nothing but patriarchal, sexist, racist, oppressive, exploitative, destructive and evil systems established by power-hungry men to oppress women, nature and minorities. It has been all of these things, but it is much more than them too. And he is calling for a more balanced, appreciative and less toxic narrative, one that can inspire our youth rather than make them think they are all victims. So what is Jordan Peterson not offering? Jordan Peterson does not claim to be a Christian. Concerning the central belief of Christianity, the resurrection of Jesus, he has said publicly that he's not sure whether it happened and is agnostic about it. When asked if he believes in God, he is elusive. He defines belief as not what you say and think, but how you act, and says he tries to act as if there is a God, but dares not say he believes in God because his actions and behavior do not qualify him to say it. That's a very high bar. However, he does consider himself a deeply religious person who is obsessed with religious matters. Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist and has been influenced by the great psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who died in 1961. As a Jungian, Peterson interprets the Bible and the beliefs of Christianity as metaphorical and symbolic expressions of unconscious archetypes. As Christians, we would say that the beliefs of Christianity are more than just archetypes and are true reflections of spiritual realities and divine mysteries that are beyond the scope of the senses to experience and the human intellect to fully fathom. His message is not the full gospel message. It lacks the joy of the Spirit that is experienced when you know that all of creation is a gift and that just to be is a blessing. He does not tell us that the goal of life is a loving union with the Father through faith in the crucified and risen Christ through the power of the Spirit. His message is more a moral, psychological and individual one, which is good as far as it goes. However, it lacks the mystical, personal, ritualistic and communal dimensions of Christianity. These are not criticisms of Jordan Peterson. He's not claiming to be an evangelist. He's a psychologist who takes a scientific and rational approach to religious phenomena. So although he is not a card-carrying, church-going Christian, he recognizes and appreciates the psychological and social value of religious belief. He's been used to help the West recover and rescue its Judeo-Christian roots. He's a bridge between the secular and atheistic camp and the spiritual and religious one. He's leading many people to the front door of churches, and it's up to us to open those doors and invite them inside so they can encounter the love and mercy of the risen Christ, who is the Lord of history and of the universe. Hope this has helped. Thank you for listening.